Instead of trying to sit up here on this pedestal of like being an expert and like, here's everything you need to do, posture, of like, here's everything you do and how I did it and how I got all these great results and everything. I was just like, I felt like I was living two different lives of like having to be the perfect person. So like I could lead a group of people to believe that they could do it. I had to be perfect myself and like never make mistakes. And it's exhausting. And so then in real life, I'm like, yeah, I had 2 cheat meals this week, or I drank a bottle of wine last night, or like whatever, right? Or like I'm dealing with postpartum depression. And I wouldn't talk about it because how can I lead a group of women and tell them that I'm like dealing with postpartum depression? You know what I mean? And so when I had the revelation of like, I just became to the point of exhaustion of having to like talk 2 different ways and be 2 different things. And I was just like,
wow,
what if I just told the truth? How freeing would that be?
Welcome to Big Business Mistakes, hosted by Brandon and Kaylin Poulin. Here, the most successful entrepreneurs tell jaw-dropping stories and lessons behind their biggest business mistakes so that you don't make them. Ditch the fake highlight reel and get the raw truths and golden lessons of what it actually takes to scale your business from those who have done it. This is Big Business Mistakes.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Big Business Mistakes podcast. We are your hosts, Kaylin
and Brandon.
Poulin.
Let's go.
Oh my God, I don't know why the intro is always so funny to me.
It feels very corny.
It's so
It feels very corny.
I feel like a jingle would feel less corny. I know we talked about that. But
Well, we have the little jingle that plays before everyone gets on here and listens to this nonsense.
I guess that's true. So I don't need to say my name anymore because it already says my name in the intro.
It does.
All right. So
in case anyone was wondering who you're listening to, because you
like
saw
you didn't
the picture,
already see our face.
You saw the picture, you saw the name.
Oh my gosh. All right. Welcome to the Big Business Mistakes podcast. We're your hosts. You already know us. Our pictures are on the thumbnail, and you already heard the intro. So if you're still here, you're a weirdo. Just kidding. So today, I'm going to be talking all about content catastrophes and the biggest mistakes that I've seen made when it comes to content not converting. What do you think?
I'm ready.
You got your listening hat on?
I got my listening hat on. I'll chime in. Don't worry. Maybe I'll heckle you. Maybe I'll take your role this time.
Will you?
Yeah, I'll try.
I'd rather you add value.
You just like heckling me.
Yeah. But I like heckling everyone.
Guys,
That's just who I am.
Am I the only one that's like in this one-way heckling relationship?
It's not. Well, I mean, that's because it's just not who you are. So, God made me this way. All right. Anyway, So we're going to talk content catastrophes. And I think, with all our clients that we work with and, the strategy days that we do and our private clients that we work with and stuff, everyone's always asking me like, will you look at my ads? Will you look at my content? Why is it not working? Like, what's happening? What's going on? And I remember being in so many seasons of this through my own 8 years of producing content, trying to get like customers and next steps and, doing the lead magnets and the products and the webinars and all of it, right? And I remember being at this place so many times where I'm like, why is this not working? Why is it not working? And so I feel that. And so I really want to like dive into when I finally changed my mindset around the content of like trying to educate people about my product, trying to educate them about their problem, and I shifted that to actually connecting with the customer. Like that's when everything that we had took off. Like that's when the messaging of our company became so fine-tuned that like people didn't come in for the product. They came in because I understood their problem. And so that's what I want to dive into today.
And they felt connected to you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Like one of the things that you said to me is, and I think you were training some of the influencers that we were working with, and you were like, you don't speak to the camera like you're talking to a group of people.
Yeah.
You speak like you're talking to one person.
Yeah.
Because really like the consumption on their end is one person sitting in the chair,
on the couch.
On the toilet.
Yeah, if you're a man, definitely on the toilet while you're watching
Dude,
reels.
I've walked into bathrooms and seen guys looking at reels when they're on the freaking urinal. And I'm like, bro, give it a rest. Right? But it's connecting one-to-one, like one person speaking to one person, not you like on a platform, on a stage.
Yep.
Type of it's just the language patterns you use, which are so unique.
Like I say, I'm talking to you. You might have a problem with this. It's not like
you
guys have a problem with this. And sometimes I use that to make it feel like there's more than just them. But I strategically say like you all the time. Like you might have this problem. They're like, yeah, I have this problem. And I'm like, if like any of you guys have this problem, then they're kind of looking over their shoulder like, who else is she talking to? Like she ain't talking to me. She's talking to them. Right? Anyways, that's just a little thing. But to get into this, I really think like the biggest problem I see, and when I go and look at people's ads and I look at their content and I see their stuff and they're asking me like, why is this not growing? Why is it not converting? Why is it not working? Like I'm doing all the things, I'm making all the reels, I'm putting out all the posts, I'm doing the stuff. Like, why isn't it working? And I think I wrote this down this morning that the biggest problem I see is people trying to sell a product instead of selling themselves. Like, they're focused so much on educating people on their methodologies, on their theories, like on giving the tips, on giving the hacks, on giving the expertise, like of being like, this is all you have to do to get there. And now work with me if you want to get there. Like, that's what I see people doing all the time. And people don't actually connect with that. Like, they don't connect with your tips and your hacks and your, like, here's my 5 tips to losing weight. Like, that's the content I used to make. Like, I would sit and make all the content that's like 5 tips to losing weight while, for moms, right? 5 easy recipes to make in a minute or less, right? Right?
Yeah.
Right. But when I say it to you, you're kind of like, yeah, that makes sense. But when it's us and our own content, we're like, but this is what they need. They need to learn these things. People want this. And it's like,
Well, and on that point, there's an element of market maturity.
Yeah.
Like probably 10 years ago, when you're posting content, if it was in that nature, it probably did work pretty well. But there's so much information.
Yeah, I'm going to get into that.
There's so much.
So
now it's about connection.
Yeah, and if people don't really connect to you, like with you, this content that's put out, like the tips and the tricks and the hacks and the like little pieces of all of your knowledge and your methodology and your theories about everything and your to-dos, it's like you become encyclopedia for them, not a person, not a leader. You're now an encyclopedia where they can go when they're like, I need to learn this thing, or like, what does she say about this? Or like, that's an interesting fact, but you're an encyclopedia. You're not leading them through this problem.
Do you think it depends on the audience? Like how much of that?
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I'm going to say is I would say like 70% of this should be like you're leading them through it. And I'm gonna dig in this, Brandon. Okay, like he has no idea what I'm saying today, so he keeps like
70% of what you're leading
of your content should be more focused on leading them through the problems and the struggle and like giving advice with using your own testimony, your own story. Like, this is how I did it, and your tactics are wrapped inside of the testimony, wrapped inside of the story. This is how I got through it. This is how I'm dealing with discouragement around the weight that I've gained since my second child, and this is what I'm doing about it. So the tactics are wrapped into the actual testimony and the story and the struggle and the relatability instead of just being like, here's the 5 things I did to lose baby weight. So you see the difference?
So I'm over here, I preach a big game on like vacation and kids and family and that time, but it's hard for me to do. And I've like talked about it, like you can just kind of get on your soapbox and like, I'm very principle based.
Yeah, you keep your soapbox close.
So I'm principle based. So I'm like, here's the principle. Give me the nugget. Give me the like, just give me the sauce. I don't need all of the like coding and all of the fluff or the story. And so, but I realize is that other people, they want to hear your struggle and your like when I said it a different way and was like, here's like how I deal with it. And I'm struggling with like, when I go on a vacation, like I'll take a walk down the beach and make a call, but like I've got to be intentional of like, how do I engage with this trip and not just be off in the future, right? Because a lot of us entrepreneurs, we live in the future so much. And so it's hard for us to be in the present. And that's what you're good at. You're good at being in the present. I'm good at being in the future. But like I have to pull myself into the present, especially when we go. Because I enjoy vacation. But it's like how I've struggled to integrate that.
Well, that's a perfect example.
So I made a post on, so my whole point here is I made a post on that, talking through the struggle, like what you're saying, and it did so much better versus just giving the information or the tactics, because there's just so much of that.
Yeah, like what I'm saying is what exactly what you just said, that was more relatable for the people on here to hear of like, oh yeah, I've dealt with that too, than for Brandon to get on here and be like, here's the 5 things I do when on vacation with my family and how I get work in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Or like how do I not work and still not go insane?
Right. But do you see how like you telling the story of like, here's what I actually struggle with and like, here's how I deal with it. But then like, here's the tips that I have.
It's like wrapped together.
Exactly. It's wrapped together. It's like a burrito.
It's like a burrito.
But the tortilla on the outside, like this is your relatability. This is your testimony. This is your story. And like all the goods inside are like the emotions that you share with them of where they're at. And then in the very middle and like sprinkled on top is the guac.
The best part.
Oh my gosh. No, because I don't think the tactics are the best part. And I'll get into that in a second.
I do.
The tactics aren't. No, you don't believe that. You don't actually believe that. Like, let me just get through it.
All right, break my belief. I'm ready.
All right.
I'm open.
So basically this whole concept of the encyclopedia versus the leader is like you're showing them how smart you are, but you're not building trust and rapport with them that you can actually get them where they want to go. Because you can spit all the tactics, you can spit all the tips and tricks, but so is everyone else on the internet. Everyone. Even people that don't actually have like the success that they say they have, they're making the same tips and
all
tricks
you
as you are.
gotta do is pick up a book and then they just regurgitate it, right?
Exactly. So when I was thinking about this and I was thinking about, when I would ask ladies like, why did you buy? Like, why did you sign up? Like, what got you started? Like, what did you do? Right? Like, what was it?
In our health company.
Yeah, in our health company that got you like in the door, And the answer was never like, oh, you have the best shake, right? It was like they hadn't tasted it yet. They don't know we have the best shake. After they tasted it, that might have been like the reason they bought again, but it wasn't that. And it wasn't like, oh, the tips you gave on exercises like really got me motivated. Like it was never that, right? Never heard that one time. Never heard like, oh, your 5 weight loss tips that you gave like literally just rocked my world and just gave me a revelation.
Those tips.
Never.
Yeah.
Never one time was it any of those things. You know what it was though? I wrote them down. I saw your video about being stuck on the couch. And like couldn't get up off the couch. And that you're in that place where you're just like binge watching TV and like eating a bag of pretzels with a whole bar of white chocolate melted. Like that was me. Like literally when I saw that video, I was doing that. And I was about to overdose on pills and was sitting in my car and your video popped up and you were talking about how like you were at the end of yourself and like hated your life and hated yourself and didn't know what to do and where to start. And like, that's exactly where I was, to the point where I was getting ready to like end my life because I didn't know what to do. And it gave me hope. And then people would say, when you were talking about your food addiction, like you were talking directly to me. That's exactly where I'm at. When you said you're discouraged about gaining weight after you had lost it, like after I lost the weight and gained weight back and like told that story, like that's me right now. And I can't get over this discouragement of having gained weight after I have lived a healthy lifestyle and I can't get back. And when you talked about like postpartum depression and what you were going through and all this stuff. So right now, like a lot of everyone's content, it all focuses on the antidote that we think we're trying to give them. Like, here's the antidote. If you just like take these tips and tricks and like understand this, then it would fix your problem, right? And we're never addressing like the actual problem, the actual sickness, the actual disease, the actual like relatability of like, here's what it is that you're struggling with. Don't worry, I've dealt with it too, and I have an answer. Follow me this way.
Because we almost all innately know what to do.
Yeah.
Like in health sense. Maybe not in the entrepreneur side. Like if you're coaching companies, like a lot of people just don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. But if we don't connect at an emotional level, well, and what you're so good at is putting yourself where they are.
Yeah.
Putting yourself in their shoes. Mm-hmm. Another way to say it.
Yeah.
Putting yourself in their mind, relating to where they are. Like you said, she's like, I was in that spot. I was at my couch. I was feeling this way. Like speaking to them where they sit right now.
Yeah. And that right there, like that is the most magnetic conversion tool that you'll ever have, is your testimony, your struggle, your triumphs, like your victory, your epiphany bridges.
You got a little thing in your tooth.
Thanks.
Wait, let me see. You got it, babe. Looking good.
Always looking out for my teeth.
You have great teeth, by the way.
So that's like your most effective conversion tool is your...
See, I'm not a heckler. I'm a complimenter.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Complimenting? Yeah, if you want me to be.
Can't get anywhere. It's finally my time. Oh my gosh. So What was I saying?
I don't know.
The best conversion tool that you have is your story and your testimony and your struggles and your pains and your ability to put yourself in their shoes and remember where you were at the point that they're at now.
Yes.
Because what's so funny is we get so far along in our journey. We get so far along and like, oh, I've made it. I've had the weight loss success, or I've had the business success, or I've made this thing happen, or I have a successful agency, or whatever it is. Like whoever you're trying to teach to and you're trying to have your content reach right now, we get past the point of like realizing what actually made us have the epiphany. And it wasn't like some tips and tricks and hacks, it wasn't. And so
what was it?
What was it? You want to know?
Yeah, of course.
So I really believe that, and I would almost bet money that the revelation in your testimony, the one that you tell and you kind of like tell it sometimes and not really all the time, and maybe like at an event you tell it, or maybe like it's in your company story or whatever, but the revelation that you had, it didn't come from a piece of knowledge or a tip. Like it wasn't learning to count macros. It wasn't, hey, use this software. This software is going to cut time for you. It wasn't like learning a recipe, or it wasn't like learning a tactic to implement in your business or in your health. Like in your own testimony, I would almost guarantee that it came from hearing a story, having an experience that gave you hope, a conversation that you had. You saw someone or heard something that related to you so much that you said, like, I think I can do that, or I can make this happen, or like, is that for me? Or what's this all about? Like there was a story or an experience or a happening that literally made you turn your ear and say, I want to listen to more of this person. I want to listen to more of what they're saying. Like I want to go down this rabbit hole a little farther. Like it wasn't a software tip they gave you or like a hiring tip. It was like, oh, I made all these mistakes hiring people, and this is what happened. And you're like, hold on, let me listen to that. Let me lean into that a little bit. Like, what's behind there? I want, like, this person's telling the truth. This is a truth teller, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the thesis behind this show, is the mistakes.
Yeah. So the whole point is that
that's the thesis. Is
you got your hope from somewhere or someone or something before you ever did the tactical action. There was hope for a future before you took a step. And so it's like, for me, it was like looking up weight loss testimonies, right? It's like, I don't know where to start, what to do. And one day I just looked up like awesome weight loss testimonies. And I saw these women who had 4 kids or, were 60 and had lost like 150 pounds. And I'm like, man, like if they can do it, I can do it, right? And so are you giving that opportunity to your audience to have that same like connection with you, of seeing them as you, right? Like as seeing you as the after, like you putting yourselves in their shoes so much that they're like, oh my gosh, she's been where I am. She's gone where I want to go. But you tell your story and relate to them in such a way that they will follow in your footsteps. They will buy everything that you have. They will do everything that you say because you've related on such a level that they're like, she knows me so well, she's already been through it. All these other PDFs and programs and courses and coaches and all of these things, like, yeah, I'm sure those work too, but the way that they will attach to you is by showing them that you've been where they want to go. Like you've already been through the process.
So good. I love that.
And so how do you like go about this, right? Like that's the next thing is like, how do you start going about it, right? And it's like, it's so stupid simple, but it scares people so much. And it's just you being a human. Like it's literally you being a human. Like taking your expert guru cap off and like literally just being a human. Because people can't relate to people on a pedestal. Like they'll never relate to you standing up there and telling them about how much you know and how much knowledge you have and how easy this is. Like they don't see it. They can't relate. But if you bring yourself down to level 1, get off your level 10 with your guru hat, get down to level 1 and say, here's what I struggle with. Here's how I overcame it. Here's what I'm doing. Like, this is my darkest moment. Here's how I got out of it. This is what I did. Here's the tactic that I did. Here's the things that I thought about. Here's the journaling that I did. Like, you have to have
legitimate value, or it's like, it's just empty promises.
Yeah, exactly. Because...
Well, this is so true, though. So just to unpack that a little bit, right? When you think about your content, when I look and I read your stuff, like all of it is geared and engineered in this way. It's all about like, here's my shortcomings and then what I learned and then like what I'm doing and you're walking it out and like, here are my results from it.
Yeah.
It's not like, here's the results and here's what you need to do to get results like me.
Yep.
Like they skip that part.
Yep.
Right. I'm bad at this. So if you study, if you study personality profiles, and Enneagram 8 is like, doesn't want to be exposed, wants to protect their whatever ego.
I'm the same personality as you, by the way.
And so you do a great job at it. And I don't. Like, I have to get better at it. Because I'm like, I don't like that feeling. Like, and then if you look at another personality profile, DISC, right? D, number one fear of a D personality is being taken advantage of.
Mine's rejection, Brandon.
Yeah. I don't even get how you do it.
I just like, I just had the revelation of like people connected more, and it made me feel better about what I did, actually telling the truth instead of trying to sit up here on this pedestal of like being an expert. I'm like, here's everything you need to do, posture of like, here's everything you do and how I did it and how I got all these great results and everything. I was just like, I felt like I was living two different lives of like having to be the perfect person. So like I could lead a group of people to believe that they could do it. I had to be perfect myself and like never make mistakes. And it's exhausting. And so then in real life, I'm like, yeah, I had 2 cheat meals this week, or I drank a bottle of wine last night, or like whatever, right? Or like I'm dealing with postpartum depression. And I wouldn't talk about it because how can I lead a group of women and tell them that I'm like dealing with postpartum depression? You know what I mean? And so when I had the revelation of like, I just became to the point of exhaustion of having to like talk 2 different ways and be 2 different things, that I was just like,
wow,
what if I just told the truth? How freeing would that be? Like, how freeing would that be if I just told the truth and just said like, here's the deal? And then just started working. And I saw the impact more than just like getting customers, but the impact that what I was saying of like bringing hope to people that are in that place that I was in, that I forgot about because that makes me look like I'm not strong enough or not enough, or I don't deserve this role, or I can't lead people because I've dealt with all these things. It's actually the best qualifier to lead them. And that's what people are looking for. People are looking for the person that can lead them from a place that like you've already been through it. And so if you're not sharing those things, like you are hugely missing out in your audience. Like the ones that are like the ready to goes are like, okay, I'll sign up. But all of the people that need to be moved past the emotional state of, I'm not sure if this person can get me there. I'm not sure if I can do it. How do you get them past, I'm not sure if I can do it? Well, it's by telling them I wasn't sure that I could do it either. I messed up all these things too. I tried all these things too. I messed up here. I backslid here. And then they're like, oh, okay, well, if the path is not expected to be perfection, then I feel like I could take the first step.
Yeah, so good. So good. I don't have words. I'm like digesting.
Yeah, I know. Right? You're thinking. He's like,
yeah, because like when I sit down to make stuff, I'm like, I've got all the carnal knowledge, right? Because I've done it, you know, and but when I make content, it's so principled, carnal knowledge. Like I think it's kind of hard too in short form, right? Like it's probably easier in a longer format, like this, right? We can be like, we're having a conversation. It's not so like quick and edited in the context of like reels, which like if you're not doing reels, like that's the video product of social media now, period, across every platform is all competing for the same type of content. But doing it there and like being story-based and leading with that emotional part, like I have like 2 feelings.
Me too. I'm not a feeler either.
So I'm like, I'm tapping into that.
It's not being a feeler and like, exposing all these feelings. It's just telling the truth about like what you've been through and how you've experienced it and how you dealt with it and how you overcame it. That's it. It's not about being, I hate the word vulnerability, by the way. Like people be like, oh yeah, be vulnerable, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, but I think people use that word to be like, oh, be vulnerable to get attention instead of be vulnerable to be relatable. People are like, oh, like make videos on these vulnerable things, talk about these topics, talk about these things. That's not what I'm saying. It's not like, oh, go make everyone like go fishing for support. That's not what this means. This is like telling the struggle and being relatable, but then giving like, here's how I got through it. Here's the steps 1, 2, 3. I journaled every day. I said my manifesto over myself. I like set my alarm clock in my bathroom
it's not to
so
be
I
a
had to get
victim.
up.
It's not to be a victim.
Yes.
It's to the end of inspiring them.
Yeah. So when you talk about the reels and stuff.
So you're saying the intent really matters behind
Yeah, it does.
how you're doing it.
Absolutely.
It's not
because people sniff that out so easily. I'm like, I see people do it all the time. And like once a week, there's some post about them falling off the edge of life. You know what I mean? And it's got all these comments and all these things. And I'm just like, you can't be serious. We're like doing this again. It's like clout chasing. That's basically like what it is. And so it doesn't come from a place of like, and here's what I'm doing. And here's how, if you're experiencing this too, like come with me on this journey. I'm dealing with it. It's just literally like, oh,
validation.
Somebody
attention.
give me validation. Yeah. And
it rides. It
rides.
It does. It gets comments. It gets engagement.
We're thinking about the same people.
Like it rides. Like it's attention for sure.
Yeah. So to kind of bring this back a second, you were just talking about reels a minute ago, but I literally wrote down like there's a black hole of tactics in your industry. Like your industry, whatever industry you're in, there's a black hole of the tips and the tactics and the hacks and all these things. Like, and if it was the tactics that got people to convert, if it was the tactics that created customers, like everyone in the health industry, like every person that was looking to lose weight would be healthy and skinny, and there wouldn't be an obesity epidemic. Because there is more health content and tactics and tips and everything on social media than anything else. And so if tactics were the problem, like if tactics were the solution, we wouldn't have a problem anymore, right? So what's the reason behind why the tactics don't create the result, right? Don't create the customer.
Because there's no emotional connection.
Right. You haven't got them over the hump.
There's no buy-in.
There's no connection. They don't see themselves as being able to be you. They don't see themselves seeing you as a leader for them. And so how do you do that?
I don't know. Tell me.
So
Tell us.
So people, they connect with people, not products. Okay. That's something that I've always said. Like people connect with people, not products. And so even when I go to like make a piece of content or make an ad or make a whatever, it's like I have a specific thing I'm supposed to be doing, like sell this product, right? And so one of the things that I'll always keep in the back of my mind is people connect with people, not products. So it's not about the product ever. Like when I was selling a bag of protein shake, it was all about me connecting with them over not having time to eat or like being super busy or every other protein shake being super chalky or all of them tasting bad and like making funny jokes about how bad they tasted and like me having to plug my nose and like.
Yeah, and the product value, unique value proposition is important.
Right.
But it's secondary to the connection. With that. But it's secondary to the connection.
Yes, it is. Exactly. And so it's like the question you should be asking yourself first is how do I get them to connect with me through a relatable story, through my testimony? How do I get them to connect with me so that I can share my products? So that I can help them take the first step. Because if you connect with them, you don't even have to do a call to action. Like if you connect with them and you start connecting with your audience, they'll be like tearing down the walls of the internet to find your products and your programs and your stuff.
I remember hearing something somewhere, I don't remember where because there's a cluster of info, but basically it was there are two types of people that need to like you, to trust you. Right?
Yeah, that's so it's the D and the C have to trust you to like you in the DISC personality survey. The D and the C have to trust you to like you.
So you have to bring validity, you have to be authentic, you have to have real meat to what you're saying. They have to trust you to like you. That's me. Yeah. 100% that's me. I'm like, I don't actually, and so this is interesting because I think counter to like what you're saying, I agree with it, but there's also the counter of like, it has to follow through with the real value proposition, the real meat, because there's and it's interesting because there's tons of people who can do what you're saying, but can't deliver afterwards. And so for me, I have to trust you to like you. Like I don't do business with people because I like them.
I just want to break this in and say that
because I trust them. Hold on, let me finish. And then after that, there's people who will only trust you if they like you. And that's what I would say that's the other half, right?
Right.
And so if you miss what you're saying, that whole half of people are like, they're gone.
No, I don't think it's half. I think it's all because Brandon, okay, let me serve up an imaginary piece of content for you right now, okay? Right. Imaginary piece of content is some dude saying he's doing something. But you see a different piece of content from someone that says, hey, one of the biggest struggles I've had is I built a company to $500 million. I ended up going bankrupt, whatever, because of these things or team problems, whatever, got sued for something, and then ended up building a company built a $1 billion company that's doing this. And here's like the biggest things that I've learned in that process. And and he was like really true about like, hey, I like over leveraged my financials. I didn't have systems in place. Like, here's the systems that I would put in place now where I messed up and got sued before. You don't think that would connect with you?
Well, it feels like trust because there's experience.
Exactly.
Not because I like them.
Exactly. It is trust based on experience of the testimony. You see what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
My testimony is the trust because I've done it. I'm showing you and telling you that I did it.
Yeah.
Not just like doing it to get you to like me. It's both parts at the same time.
Yeah.
The personality piece is the part that'll get you to like me. But the trust is built in the relatability of I've been through and I've been where like you want to go. I've done it.
Yeah.
And here's the trials and tribulations that happened to me along the way. And this is how I got there.
Love it. So you got to have both.
Yeah, you got to have both. So when it comes down to like execute on this and doing it, right? I said it's about you being a human. And for a lot of you, not a coach.
I felt like a little spark there with you. I
What?
like this conversation.
What?
You're like, she like turned into me and she was like, listen.
Listen. First of all, you're wrong. Second of all, it's about you being a human and not a coach. So this is hard because a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of you guys listening, like you're coaches, you have clients, you coach people. And so it's hard to take the coaching hat off and get back to like the human piece and in the remembering of here's how I got here. Here's what I was struggling with. Here's what I was dealing with, right? And so you have to take that coach hat off and talk about your struggles, talk about your failures, talk about the real life crap that's like coming up on a day-to-day that you're frustrated with, right? And so the same crap, by the way, that you're talking about is what your potential customer, like from your past, like your potential customer is in that place right now. So when you're talking about, here's what I was struggling with when I had an eating disorder, 4 different types of eating disorders, right? And I'm talking about those, that's where they're at right now, right? Like if I'm just talking about like, oh, like I got my workout in every day this week, they don't freaking relate to that. My customer, they relate to when I say, oh, like here's my food addictions I struggle with. Here's how I got past it. Here's how I got over it.
And then they're like, wake up this morning.
Yeah, they're like, I'm in that place right now. So how do you talk to the place that they're at right now? And until they see like the hope of overcoming the like situation they're in, like they'll never attach to the antidote or the product that you have. They'll never attach to any of them because they're just like waiting for the person that's like, who has gone before me, right? It's the same way that we look for mentors. Like who has gone before me? Like that's the way most of you business, and if you haven't, like you're looking at it wrong. But when you look for a mentor, you're looking at who's gone before me and who can help me get to the next level, right? That's the same thing your customer's thinking. And they're thinking, who can help, like who has been where I've been, has been in this situation and can get me where I want to go. They're thinking the same thing. But you're instead serving them up tips and hacks and tricks instead of like showing them that you're that person.
Instead of talking about being in the position that they're in through the struggle, here's where I started, here's where I was. And then they're sitting in that like they're marinating in that pain right now. They're marinating in it and they're sitting there going like, oh, like I got all this knowledge, but I need someone who can like relate. Yeah. So I like them and then I'll trust them. Yeah.
So what are your old, like think of this list of things as like the old and current. So when you were first starting out and you didn't know what you were doing or you were trying to figure things out on your own, what were those doubts? What were the negative thoughts? What were the struggles? What were the victories that seemed like huge back then and now they seem small? Like what were those victories? What were the new strengths? What were the growth opportunities? What were your worst days and your best days? What did those look like? And so when I say old and current is because we're still human. We're dealing with these things every day. We're talking a minute ago about us arguing before our last podcast and stuff. It's like There's stuff we deal with on a daily basis.
We don't argue. Are you kidding me? Any couples out there that argue? I don't do that.
But if you're going to ask people to trust you and to buy from you, to work with you, like how can they do that? You know, how can they make that decision if you haven't built trust with them and shown them that you've risen up from where they're at? But most people are afraid of that conversation. They're afraid of like sharing those parts of themselves. They're afraid of like putting themselves out there and saying, oh, I messed this up, or I struggled with this, or I'm dealing with this now because it'll make me look bad as a coach to these people. If I'm dealing with something that makes me look like a bad coach. It's like, no, it makes you look like the coach that I want to work with, because like now I know if you're dealing with something and you're overcoming it, that when I get to that place, you're going to help me get through it.
So good.
And so what are the things that you've learned how to overcome, and how do you talk about them?
The first list, you read it really fast. Is that something that we could read a little slower and then people could kind of like think about?
Yeah. So it's current doubts, so this is old and current. And I would just make like a T-chart list. What are the old ones? What are the current ones? Negative thoughts, struggles, victories. So the old ones, like what are the little victories that seem so huge and now are small? What are the big victories now? What are strengths, like new strengths that you developed through your testimony, through the process? What were the growth opportunities that you had? What were your worst days and your best days? Because if you can remember when like you were in their shoes, if you can remember when you felt alone, or you felt discouraged, or you felt overwhelmed, or you felt like you were having to figure it all out by yourself, or you felt unmotivated, or you felt like you were lacking support, or you felt afraid, or you felt clueless. Like if you can put yourself back in that spot, like you will attract an entire industry to you. That's what I did in weight loss, because everyone else was talking about, here's the tips and the tricks and the hacks. And so was I in the beginning. But the moment that I transferred over into like the real stuff of where my customer was actually at and talking to them from that place, then everyone knows what Lady Boss is.
Yeah, and this plays out. I mean, I watched everything and read everything, and it plays out in like the hooks and the intros, and the thing that would draw you in was always exactly what you're talking about.
It was an emotion.
It was an emotion, and then it would transition into like the core pain or problem that they had.
Yep.
And then it would transition to how our thing solves that and how it's unique in solving that, right? Yep. So it would start on like this emotional spectrum, and then it would move kind of like where they are mentally, the language patterns they're using, the environment they're in, right? I'm sitting on the couch, I'm in despair, I can't wake up in the morning.
All the senses.
Right? The senses, yeah, that's so good. And then it would migrate over, and then it would become about the pain, right? That they have as a result of where they are emotionally, and then it would introduce the solution to that pain. And like that's basically the anatomy.
Well, I have the anatomy here I like your synopsis of it, but I have the anatomy here if you would like me to share it.
Yeah, share it. I wonder how close it is.
It's very close. So I would just say, here's all the components. Like this is more like a recipe. It's not like, it's more like a on-hand recipe.
So this is the anatomy of like content that's going to convert and connect.
Connect and convert.
Or content that will connect to then convert. Because I think that's what the whole thesis, we were talking about this episode, we're like, okay, people are making content. It's just it's going over people's heads. It's not like sticking. And so it's about connecting and then converting.
Exactly. So this is the components. This is the recipe right here. Number one, it needs to be relatable. So when I say relatable, I mean, I literally sit and I transport myself back to like when I was dealing with being overweight. Or like, even for this podcast, I'll like transport myself back to like when we had that big fiasco. Like, how was I feeling? What was happening? Like, what did things look like? What was I struggling with? What were the thoughts in my head? And I'll like transport myself back there to become relatable. And so every piece of content I craft comes from that place. It's almost like I've time traveled and now I'm like writing a blog post from inside the time travel, if that makes sense.
So good. Yeah.
I like put it on. I like put on the environment.
Love
I like
that.
Sometimes I'll be writing posts and I'll like cry like it's actually happening right now, because it's like, yeah. Like, yeah, if it's like, even just now when I was talking about like the postpartum stuff, I'm like, I like will take myself there. And then it's like,
wow,
what did life feel like? What did it look like? Like what was happening? Because guess what? Like if I'm willing to transport there and extract all those things to make a message, then the person that's dealing with it right now is going to be like, holy crap. Like, and this is how you get customers to follow you to the ends of the earth, you know? Because it's like, I've never met someone more real
this is
open.
powerful stuff, guys. This
and more open. So it needs to be relatable.
Use this responsibly.
Yeah, use this responsibly.
Needs a disclaimer.
The second one is it tells a story. So it tells a story. And I think it's very hard because I talk about like creating your story bank all the time. But most people are like, oh, I have my story and that's a story, right? It's my one story that I tell over and over and over and over and over again, right? And so I take a different approach to storytelling. And it's like I have my main story. That's like my main timeline of how things happened. But then there's days, like little tiny dots on the timeline everywhere of things in particular, in specific, that happened on that day, where there was a falling out, or there was something I failed at, or there was a big mistake I made, or some crazy way I was feeling, or a big incident that happened that like I remember. Emotionally, I remember it happening, right? And so I create these little mini stories to where then every time I'm telling a story, when I'm talking about marriage or I'm talking about overeating, right? I have a bunch of these tiny little stories that are examples of me overeating, or examples of my food addiction, or examples of me trying to get out from going to the gym, or examples of me being embarrassed of my weight. I have a bunch of tiny stories that don't fit on the main timeline because you don't have time to go through all those every time you tell a story, but literally map out what are all your tiny stories that happen in between in each bucket. Like, you know, if you teach on weight loss, right? If you have a weight loss product, like what is everything in each bucket? Like,
so how do you define the buckets?
So it depends on what you sell, but it's like, what are the main struggles of your customer? What are the main struggles of your customer? And for me, it was...
What pain
what pains they have. Right. Well, what pains they have. So for me, it was like, I'm not motivated. I can't stop eating. I've never worked out before.
I'm on medication.
Yeah, not
like
really.
I'm taking medication.
Yeah, but
because of my weight.
That wasn't a big one. No, it was more like I don't have the confidence. Like I can't run around with my kids. Like I'm depressed. Like those are all the big things for me. So I'm like, what are all of my stories that fit in those 5 main pain buckets of my customer? What is every single story that I've had over the last 13 years of being on this health journey? What's every single story I have? And then I'll just like write a couple words down for each story. And that's how I really started learning that. And mine are all in my brain now because I've been like doing this so long. But it's like, if you need to get to that place where you can tell a story a million different ways, give examples a million different ways, you're not saying the same thing over and over and over again, like that's the exercise that you should do. So
good.
When you're telling a story, number 2, that was tell a story. It should explain all the emotions felt. It should lead with the senses of like how you're feeling, like what things look like what was the emotional state? And like, is there anything tangible that you could tie it to? Like my hands were sweating, like I was crying, like what were the emotions and the senses that you can engage them and connect with them through that? And then what are the thoughts that were going on inside of your head? So when you're telling a story, I'm always talking about the emotions that I felt, even though I'm not a feeler, they're happening inside. I might not express them to the world outwardly and just have a scowl on my face, but inside, this is what I was feeling. This is like what was happening in my 5 senses. And then this is the thoughts I was having. So that's how I tell a story.
So emotions, senses, like story is emotions,
senses and thoughts. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
EST.
Just wrote this morning. And then number 3 is shows your personality.
Brush the dirt off your shoulder. The way you said that. Just wrote this morning. I almost like needed you to just do this for me.
The third one is shows your personality. Because this is also something that makes you like awesomely human, and people relate to people, not products. But even for me, I'd be doing like recipe videos in the kitchen, and I would like mess something up, or I wouldn't have Cool Whip, or I would drop the flour on the floor. And instead of being like,
I gotta refilm it.
Instead of being like, I gotta refilm it, or I'm live and gonna be like,
all embarrassed.
Okay, yeah, all embarrassed. I'm just like, oh my, like sorry you guys, in case you didn't know this about me, I'm extremely clumsy and I'm doing a lot right now, trying to like do this and like focus on this recipe. And so all the flour's all over the floor. So I'm going to put this flour in this recipe, but I'm not going to eat it because the flour was on the floor. And it just like showcases some of my personality. Another way you can do this in like a written post is like, I was feeling this way and I was super sad, like, or I was like dealing with this and blah, blah. And also the Vikings lost that day. So I was already mad. Like you're just showcasing.
Had to bring up the Vikings.
I know. So you're just showcasing some of your personality, right? Of like who you are as a person outside of what you do.
By the way, guys, Kaylin loves sports.
Yeah.
I live in a sports frat house with one member, and her name is Kaylin Poulin. Yeah. What sports are on today? I know. NASCAR, Kentucky Derby, NFL, NBA,
soccer,
tennis,
softball, baseball,
softball. There's softball on my television in my house. Yeah. You know you're insane about sports when you watch softball.
Well, he walks in on like during football season. Softball? He walks in during football season, and I'm like up in our theater, and I have like 8 football games on at once, like watching them all.
Yeah.
No, like all the.
I commit and go all in on the Minnesota Vikings, the NFL team.
If they're doing good, you go all in.
Well, if we're just like completely
if
trash,
they're not doing good, you just go get your computer and work on Sunday.
If they're not doing good, I want to like.
That's exactly
what you do. It just makes me angry. It's an emotional defense mechanism.
All right,
because I can't watch it. You know.
Yeah. So this is Brandon right now showing some of our personality. Case in point.
That's like hey, look, when you look at the reviews of the podcast. People are like, transparency, raw, you guys are real. And I'm just like, it's actually way easier and more fun to do that.
Exactly my point.
Right?
Yeah.
Like we just interrupted this whole podcast, or I did, because she was talking about sports.
Usually I'm the interrupter.
She was talking about sports and like driving this whole thing and doing sports and driving this whole thing. And I'm just like, oh yeah, we'll just interrupt it and talk about sports and what's happening in our house. So it's like, oh, there's a little bit about me that you didn't know.
Are you ready for number 4?
I'm ready.
It's a one-on-one.
I didn't know we were on number 4, but I'm ready for number 4.
Yeah. Shows your personality was number 3. Now we're on number 4. It's a one-on-one conversation, not a speech to the masses.
This is what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. This is you like constantly jumping ahead of me.
Yeah, I knew that one. I was like trying to cheat on the test a little bit.
Yeah, I know. You were a little bit. So it's a one-on-one conversation. Like when I'm talking in copy or I'm talking in a video or I'm writing a caption, I'm always using words like you. And when I say we on like video, I'll like use hand gestures like me and you. So when I say we, I'm saying like me and you. I'm not saying we as like all of us. I'm like pointing to myself, then I'm pointing to Brandon saying like we. Like we.
We?
We.
We.
And so it's always a one-on-one conversation. Instead of saying you all of you ladies or everyone, like I speak to them like you. Are you struggling with this? Have you ever dealt with this? Not like, is anyone else dealing with this? Is anyone else struggling with this? Like I'm speaking directly to them because when you use you, it draws people in. Like they're like, she's talking to me. I need to read it, see what she's saying to me. Very different than she's talking to everyone. She ain't calling me out. She's calling everyone out. And they're looking over their shoulder being like, who's she talking to? It ain't me. Right? When we use the words you, it just draws people in.
So good.
And then the 5th one is it should talk from level 1, not level 10. So what we were saying earlier about getting down from your guru pedestal and like coming down here with everyone, like walking hand in hand with them. Like you have to talk to them like you are still level 1. You have the knowledge of level 10, but you have to save that for the back because it overwhelms them, right? You need to come down to level 1 and be like, I remember when I struggled with this. When I was dealing with this is what I did. This is the thing that helped get me out of this. Like you're talking now from level 1 of like remembering that experience. Like here's all the mistakes I made, like we're doing right now, right?
Yeah.
Here's all the mistakes I made. And like, here's how to fix it, right? And so now you're meeting them with the relatability of coming down to level 1, but then you can take their hand and bring them up to level 10 where you're at through your teaching, through your courses, through your coaching. Like you have to walk them to level 10. You can't just like be up on your pedestal talking to people at level 1 and being like, come meet me up here. They're like, well, how the heck do I get up there? Right? They can't see the path. So you have to come down and you got to walk them up yourself.
So good.
And then number 6, it gives a tactic that helped you to help them. So this is where I'm saying
number 6 is the tactic.
Number 6.
Number 6. I just want to like emphasize that because for me and a lot of people out there that create content, and I'm migrating and I'm learning this just because you see what works. Like this is what
Because you want
This
to
is
just
what's created billions of views. Billions of views, what she's talking about. Go look at her accounts. Like you made like a post on your page. Organically, it was like 3,000 likes or something on Facebook. Like
yeah, nobody, it's like 550
nobody gets that kind of reach on Facebook. Organically on pages. It's like profiles are what's crushing it, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy. So this is like the tactic is number 6.
Yeah. Give the tactic that helped you to help them. So if I'm telling a story and I'm showing personality, I'm having this conversation at a level 1 point of view about something I dealt with, like a food addiction or not being able to get up off the couch. I give the 1, 2, 3, the 1 or 2 or 3, not 5, not 10, 1 or 2 or 3 things that like, here's what I did that helped me get out of this situation. So this could be as easy as I would just focus on putting my shoes on. Like just focus on putting your shoes on and tying them up. Because if you can get your shoes on and tie them up, like now they're on. It's easier to get to the gym. Or I would make my pre-workout.
Nobody puts their shoes on, ties them up, and goes and lays back in bed.
Yeah.
Have you ever done that?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Anyway,
I've never done that. If I get my shoes on, I'm going.
Or it would be like I make my pre-workout the night before. Instead of like waking up, like I used to look forward to having pre-workout. Mm-hmm. And so I would literally go make the pre-workout.
Today. I like it. We're getting some health bonus tips.
No, it's just my experience.
Yeah.
I would go make the pre-workout and I would put it on my nightstand. So then my alarm went off. I'm like, I get to drink my pre-workout. And it got me out of bed.
Oh, yeah. You ain't going to sleep after that.
No, not also
maybe
look forward
shoes,
to
but
doing
not pre-workout.
Anyways, so my point here is that you're giving the one tactic, or I journaled every day, or I checked in on this every day, or I did this thing each day, or I journaled and I read my manifesto and I like walked around the block. Like, what are the 1, 2, or 3 things? That's the tactic that you did that got you out of the situation, and transfer that to them as this is what you can do right now. Because this is what I did when I was level 1, and this is what worked for me. Here's what you can do right now to like make that first progress forward.
So good. My favorite part about this podcast, honey, is like when like I'm in it, I'm just like, oh, this is so. I'm speaking, and then you start heckling me, and I'm like, oh my, I can't believe she's interrupting me right now. And then when you're doing it, the same thing happens.
We're the same personality.
I know, it's so funny.
Yeah, but I just...
If you guys are watching, if you're not watching the video version of this, you're missing out.
You're missing a lot of eye rolls.
Oh yeah, you're missing her eye rolls, and I'm like...
And my death glares.
What's like the third one?
Yeah, but I usually interrupt you like at least where there's like a period in place. Yeah. You just like...
I just come in. Yeah.
Yeah, you just...
It's like swinging a sledgehammer sometimes.
You are just a giant sledgehammer all the time.
You're getting the real raw.
If you guys have
real and raw today.
If you guys have ever seen that video about like when you do everything aggressively,
like
and you see that viral reel of like the guy who's like slamming the door and he like pours the milk and it goes all over the counter and then he like jumps in the bed and then he like, that is Brandon.
That's me.
So when I say he's a sledgehammer all day every day, like that's literally
yeah.
It's like the guy made it as a joke, but it's literally Brandon.
Yeah, like every move is very intentional and aggressive.
Yeah.
So I can be like as fast as possible. Like when I get up, I don't know, do you ever do this? Like when I get up in the morning, like I have my whole routine and everything. Mm-hmm. I literally make every micro movement as efficient as possible. Like how I get my like supplements out of my container in the morning is like, you know what I mean? You do that?
With my food.
You do it with your food. You aren't like...
But it's not as efficient as possible with your pills, all your pills and vitamins, Brandon, or else they would be in like the pill thing that's already like all sorted for you. And you don't have to...
No, because it takes... The amount of time it takes to set them up, you add 2 extra steps. Because you're taking the pills out.
I love how you thought
listen. You take the pills out and put them on the counter in the morning. And then you eat them. Like you would have to take the pills out, open a container, put them in, close the container, and then open the container and pull them out again.
Yeah, but you're having to open 8 containers every day.
I bet you if
that's
we had
more steps.
Maybe.
It is.
No.
Yeah.
No.
It is. You have to open 8 different bottles and get 2 to 3 different pills out of every one instead of just opening them one time and putting them all.
I will challenge anyone to a contest.
No, we're going to do a timer. And I will put them all in the thing and you will get out 7 days worth of stuff by opening them, closing them, and putting them back in the drawer every time.
It works faster, I swear.
Whatever.
It works faster.
Don't believe you.
And then you just wake up in the morning, boom. Because then you don't have to remember to like, oh, I got to like Sunday night.
No, it's not wake up in the morning, boom. It's wake up in the morning and open 8 pill bottle containers instead of just one little drawer.
It's insane.
I'm going to wake up earlier tomorrow morning
Agree
just so
agree to disagree. I'm faster. I've got the best system possible.
Oh, this is so dumb. Okay. All right. Can we go to the 7th one? This is the last one.
Okay.
So
7, I'm ready.
On the components, it goes like this.
Serious.
Relatable. Okay. Relatable, tells a story, shows your personality, one-on-one conversation, talks from level 1, not level 10, gives a tactic that helped you, that will help them.
Yes,
and then the
opening
7th,
the pill bottle. I'm just kidding.
And then the 7th one is the value PS. So these pieces of content
that's so good.
are
the
not
value
meant
PS.
to push a product. They are pushing your testimony for relatability to connect with people. It should be like 70% of your content at least should be this. I think we ran more at the 80-20, where it was more 80% of like relatable content and 20% were like call to action of like, hey, here's this thing. Like, here's this recipe in this shake, buy this shake.
Yeah, I'd say it's like 1-7 ratio is probably what we did.
Oh, so you went 1-7 instead of my 8-2. Is that really what you just did?
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Just wanted you to hear that.
It's an aggressive 8-2 is like an aggressive ratio. I go 1-7.
Well, I was just doing 80%, 20%.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Find what works for you, people.
On these types of connection content, all this type of content, you're going to want to use a value PS, not a call to action. So you heard Brandon trying to guess at my list earlier and was saying like, and then like you transgress them into a call to action. Actually, I would say that's incorrect on things that are not like a specific push of a product. Like I'll still use this when I'm selling something like hardcore, just coming out and being like, I'm here to sell you this today. But on all of this type of content, I use a value PS. So I'll tell the story, I'll go through it, I'll be relatable, I'll talk about it, I'll give the tactic. And then at the very end where I'm like, let me know if this helps, or I'm like, you know, go make it happen, or you can do this, and whatever my sign off is, after that, I will put a PS. I'll say PS, and then I'll say like, for all of you moms who are struggling with this, I made this free guide for you that'll help you XYZ. Or for all you moms that are struggling with not having the time to eat, like I'm offering you 3 free samples right now, no questions asked, to help you like kickstart this journey. Or PS, here's this other guide. Or PS, I'm doing this like free web class on how to lose weight without giving up pizza and ice cream. You know, for all the women who need help, like who need the first step. And so the value PS. So it becomes a PS to it, to where then, because a lot of times I see people make these awesome, amazing posts and they roll right into their call to action. And then it's like, oh, he just said all of this to sell something. But when you put it in position as a PS, it softens it. And and that's truly how I want it to feel.
It's more digestible.
Right. And that's truly how I want it to feel. Like it is a separate thing. And for those of you who are looking for something like this, here it is. And it's a PS separate from like the journey I just took them on. Wasn't because of the PS, right? But the PS is there to capture the ones that are like, I'm ready to take the next step. They can get it there. And so, so 80% of your content should be value PS, like this group above, and then 20% like your direct call to action, like normal content you make about your product, services, and all your good stuff. So,
and if you're doing reels, if you're doing organic content and not paid traffic, like every dollar of paid traffic should have a call to action on it. Mm-hmm. But organic content, I think, is where the PS shines.
Yeah, but our organic content, the ones that really took off for me, like using these methods, we literally just turn on as ads.
Yes.
With the PS still in place.
Yes.
And we wouldn't put a button.
Your PS could be like, you put up a reel, right? So like we'll do reels off of this episode, mm-hmm. and then you're going to do a PS, and the PS is going to call them to then go to YouTube to watch the full episode.
Yeah, and I would call out the specific person. I would call it the specific person that you're talking to in that video. Like if I'm talking about struggling to find time to eat because I'm dealing with 2 kids all the time, then in my PS, I'm calling out the other busy moms like me. I'm not saying for any ladies. I'm just saying for other busy moms who are struggling with this too, I made this free guide for you.
Love it.
Right? So I actually like call them out.
Love it. Yep. That's it. Blew it up. Guys, that was so good. It was very clear. Like,
what'd you learn?
I I've walked with you on all of these tactics and these thought processes, and we've developed them together. It's fun to hear it all really come together. So I think that was amazingly valuable. You guys, that was insane. I hope you guys like the gravity, like go back, do the workshop part of that. I mean, we literally just did a mini workshop in the podcast. Like you go back, pause, write those things out, right? I think that my biggest takeaway was the senses, like my thoughts, my senses, and I think was
emotions.
Emotions. I was going to say feelings. Those three things are like, that gives you a foundation for like, what do I write? How do I like express this? Right?
Yeah, you got to bring it into color.
And bring it into color for people, not just like tactic or strategy or just like, yes, that's the value, but you got to like wrap the value burrito.
The value burrito.
It's the value burrito.
Yeah, and this is more like a checklist of things. It's like when you're writing something, look at it and say, does it have all these qualities?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, I can't really say that I'm speaking from like, I'm probably speaking from level 10 here and not level 1. So it's more like your checklist and like your boundaries of how to make the content. Like, look at the list every time you're writing an email or a piece of content or a sales page and say like, do I have these components here?
Yeah.
Are these things present?
So good. I love that. Guys, this has been an amazing episode. I hope you guys loved it. If you did, P.S. drop a review. Oh my God. Hook us up. Drop a review.
Oh my gosh.
We'd love to hear what you liked about it.
Yeah, what your biggest takeaway was. What was your nuggie?
Wait, can I do a PSS?
Yeah. You can do
so we would do this. We would do a PSS. PSS. Kaylin and I, we do one-on-one strategy days with 7-figure companies that want to grow and scale.
Yeah.
Right? This is what we do. We help companies shortcut that pain, that growth process. Yeah. We've been where you've been. We've walked the road. We've been through it. We work with one company a week. We've worked with dozens of companies. The results are insane. Like I just talked to a guy yesterday, doubled the business since we started working together. And
how long has that been?
I think our first meeting was 6 months ago.
Doubled the business in 6 months.
Doubled the company in 6 months. Like sizable, right? Like I think they were at like 600K. Now they're running 1.2 million and there's so much room. It's like now it's just opened up, like whatever. Anyway, so PSS, theenterpriseceo.com.
Theenterpriseceo.com.
You guys can apply to work with us. We'd love to connect with you. And thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Yeah. We seriously appreciate it.
Drop your nuggies for me. I read all the reviews. I want to hear what was your biggest takeaway, and so we know what to make more of.
I definitely heckled you today.
Yeah, I liked it.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, I did. I just have to eye roll. That's how I like participate back, is like eye rolling.
Is it spicy?
Yeah.
Kaylin keeps it spicy. She keeps it spicy for me.
Yeah.
Keeps it exciting. All right, guys. Thanks for watching another episode of the Big Business Mistakes podcast with us. We appreciate y'all. See you next time.
Bye.
See ya.